Sometimes to save a forest, or to protect an endangered bird, or to bring an entire ecosystem back into balance, the solution on the table is, well, it's pretty simple and direct. Kill other animals. It's this conservation strategy that feels both brutally logical and, let's be honest, deeply controversial. But is this direct approach, what's often called lethal control, really as straightforward as it seems? That's the huge question we're going to dig into today.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the problem that lethal control is supposed to solve, what we're calling the simple fix. Then we'll dive into the surprising ways it can completely backfire, which is known as ecological blowback. After that, we'll look at the human factor, public opinion and some surprising scientific blind spots. And then we've got a really powerful case study where this exact approach might just be preventing an extinction. Finally, we'll try to piece this all together and make sense of this massive dilemma.
All right, so let's get right into it. Let's start with the core problem that even puts lethal control on the table in the first place, an ecosystem that's been thrown way out of balance because there are just too many of one particular animal.
I want you to picture a forest, a beautiful, complex ecosystem. Now, imagine it's just overflowing with deer. So many that they're eating every single young tree, they're stripping the bark off the older ones, and they are fundamentally changing the entire landscape. This isn't just some hypothetical, by the way. This is a real serious problem in many parts of the world. So the question becomes pretty unavoidable. To save the forest, do you have to kill the deer?
And it's not just about the trees. When one species becomes overabundant, the ripple effects are absolutely huge. Research shows they can destroy vegetation, like we just talked about, but they can also spread diseases to livestock and even push out other native wildlife that are trying to compete for the same food and space. So, when you're faced with this cascade of problems, lethal control, or culling, it's often seen as the most efficient, the most direct tool in the box. Just remove the source of the problem, and the ecosystem can start to heal. Sounds simple, right? Well, maybe not so much.
Yeah, see, intervening in a complex system like an ecosystem is almost never that simple. Sometimes the fix just ends up creating a whole new set of problems. This is what we call ecological blowback.
Okay, so one of the most fascinating and frankly dangerous forms of this blowback has a very specific name. It's called mesopredator release. It's a really powerful idea. Basically, nature has a kind of hierarchy. If you remove a top predator, you're not just creating an empty space. What you're often doing is just promoting the next predator down the line, the mesopredator, and that can have some really devastating unintended consequences.
Take a look at this real-world case from Australia. Conservationists wanted to protect these threatened native mammals, so they launched a huge poison baiting campaign to get rid of invasive red foxes. And, it worked on the foxes. But with the foxes gone, the feral cat population, which had been kept in check by the foxes, just exploded. And the final outcome? The threatened native mammals were actually preyed upon more than they were before. The solution literally made the original problem worse.
And here's another major headache for wildlife managers. Something called compensatory immigration. You can think of this as nature's vacuum effect. When you remove animals from one specific area, you basically create this prime, empty real estate. And as soon as that territory is vacant, new animals from all the surrounding areas just rush right in to claim it.
A study on feral cats in Tasmania showed this perfectly. A culling program successfully removed the established, dominant cats from an area. But guess what happened next? Younger, more transient cats from the forests all around immediately moved in. The culling didn't actually reduce the population in the long run. It just created this revolving door of new arrivals, and the numbers bounced right back to where they were. The takeaway here is, unless your control effort is massive and continuous, you might just be spinning your wheels.
Now, beyond these ecological traps, there's a whole other layer of complexity. Us, people. The decision to use lethal control isn't just about the science. It's about public values, ethical beliefs, and, as we're about to see, some pretty surprising gaps in our own scientific knowledge. This chart from a study in Spain really shines a light on the social challenge. When people were asked how they'd prefer to manage overabundant deer, the results were crystal clear. The huge majority preferred indirect stuff, like fencing. Next up was live trapping, and culling, it was by far the least popular option. This shows a massive disconnect between what is often proposed as the most efficient solution and what society is actually willing to accept. And the researchers themselves really hammered this point home. This quote just nails it. The conflict isn't just about whether to manage the deer, it's about how. For policymakers, navigating public opinion can be just as tough as figuring out the ecology. If you ignore it,
you can wind up with this intense social conflict that can completely derail any management plan, no matter how scientifically sound it is.
But the complication doesn't stop there. There's a really surprising problem within the science itself. You would think we'd be studying all the options equally, right? Well, take a look at this. This bar chart, based on a massive review of scientific papers, shows a shocking bias. A full 78% of studies on controlling hoofed animals like deer focused on one single method: shooting. That means all the other methods, fencing, contraception, you name it, are all crammed into that little remaining 22%.
So what does this scientific blind spot actually mean in the real world? It means we're making these incredibly high-stakes decisions with incomplete information. We have a mountain of data on shooting, but our understanding of the long-term effectiveness, the costs, and the benefits of non-lethal alternatives is by comparison tiny. We're often choosing from a menu where only one option has been thoroughly taste-tested.
So this brings us to a really critical turning point, okay? We've seen that culling can backfire ecologically, it's often deeply unpopular, and the science is super lopsided. The arguments against it are definitely piling up. So the question is there ever a case to be made for it? Should we ever actually pull the trigger?
To answer that, we have to look at a dramatic, high-stakes conservation battle that's playing out right now in the forests of North America. This is the case of the owls. Okay, so here's the situation. The native spotted owl, it's an iconic species, it's protected under federal law, is in deep, deep trouble. And why? Because the barred owl, a larger, more aggressive cousin from the east, has invaded its territory. The barred owls are basically outcompeting the spotted owls for everything: food, nesting sites, and they are driving them straight to the brink of extinction.
The response was drastic and, you guessed it, controversial. A large-scale lethal control program. And just look at the sheer scale of this thing. We are not talking about a small, localized effort. Between 2006 and 2024, researchers and managers removed over 3,000 barred owls from the forests of Northern California. This was a massive, coordinated test of lethal control as a last-ditch effort to save a species.
So, what happened? What were the results? Well, this table tells the story in the clearest way possible. Researchers compared two types of areas. In the area they called WCSA, where they did no removals, the native spotted owl population just continued its steady decline. But in the area called GDRC, where they actively removed the barred owls, the spotted owl population stabilized. The decline was halted. This is some of the strongest evidence we have that, in a crisis, lethal control might be the one tool that actually works.
So where does all of this leave us? We've seen really powerful arguments against lethal control and a really powerful argument for it. This right here is the heart of the conservation dilemma, and it is just so clear there are no easy answers.
So, let's just take a quick step back and see where we've landed. On one hand, right, we've seen that lethal control can cause all sorts of unintended harm through things like that mesopredator release. We know it can be basically useless if new animals just move right back in, and that it's often really unpopular. But on the other hand, and this is a huge but, we've also seen a case where it looks like it might be the only thing standing between a protected species and total extinction.
So the crucial point really is this: lethal control isn't a moral absolute. It's not inherently good or bad. It's a powerful and it's a risky tool. The decision to use it can't just be a blanket policy. It has to be made on a case-by-case basis, it has to be backed by solid evidence, and it must always involve weighing the very real risks of taking action against the potentially irreversible costs of doing nothing at all.
And that really brings us to the final lingering question. It's a question that conservationists, policymakers, and really all of us have to grapple with. When our desire to protect one part of nature requires us to destroy another, where and how do we draw that line?